CEO Millionaire discovers hidden joy after 20 years. The incredible song that changed everything. Jacob Reynolds sat behind his glass desk, the San Francisco skyline sprawling like a tangible testament to his triumph. His tech startup was the envy of many, but as he stared at the Golden Gate Bridge shimmering in the distance, an unsettling unease crept into his mind. He had sacrificed everything for this: his time, his family, his warmth. Slowly, a hollow ache replaced the thrill of success. In the heart of his lavish penthouse, loneliness festered beneath the opulent veneer. That night, compelled by a restless urgency, Jacob dug through boxes in his garage, dust motes dancing in the orange glow of a single bulb. He stumbled upon a cassette labeled "Mom's Song." It felt like a breadcrumb left by his past, leading him to a journey he had long ignored. With a flick of the play button on an ancient tape deck, a chorus of nostalgia enveloped him. His mother's voice, tender and soothing, broke through the barriers he had built around himself. The laughter of family dinners echoed in his mind, and suddenly, the love he had cast aside flooded back. The warmth was intoxicating, but with it came the bitterness of realization. He recalled the comfort of homemade cookies and the safety of her hugs, contrasting sharply with the ministry of ambition he had formed. Could he go back? Jacob felt a surge of determination to reconnect with the music of his heart. He reached out to Mrs. Thompson, his old music teacher. From her, he rekindled the spark of songwriting. Piece by piece, against a tapestry of corporate pressure, he unearthed powerful emotions now reclaiming their long-deserved stage. But as he poured his soul into a ballad, colleagues noticed. Glances turned to whispers, and mockery replaced admiration. "Has been," they would say, doubt seeping into the corners of his mind. Is this really what a millionaire does? This fear gripped him tighter than any dollar amount ever had. He hesitated. Could he really choose art over the empire he built? The conflict clawed at his insides, a relentless tug-of-war that was beginning to blind him. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The urgency to sing his truth grew. He envisioned hosting a charity concert, rooted in his mother's legacy, a community of voices merging in harmony. Back in the office, he sketched plans amidst derision. A colleague rolled his eyes. Another snickered. Dream on, Jacob. Doubts poised like vultures overhead. Would anyone attend? Would this be his unraveling? The very thought filled him with dread. Family dinners grew more strained, silence replacing laughter as they observed his artistic pursuits with concern. Would they understand? Each gaze felt like a reminder of the rift his ambition had forged. Jacob's heart raced, caught in turmoil, abandon everything he had fought for or embrace the whispers of a past that still felt alive. The unfinished song echoed in his mind, a haunting rhythm of uncertainty. Would he find the courage to face his true self, or would he allow fear to silence his song forever? Jacob sat on the edge of his bed, the weight of the unplayed guitar leaning against the wall like a lingering shadow. The song lyrics scattered across the room felt like pieces of a puzzle he struggled to fit together, each phrase vibrating with the potential of his reawakened dreams. Yet here he was, plagued by the image of scornful colleagues circling like sharks, ready to devour his artistic ambitions. The laughter of the boardroom echoed menacingly in his mind, drowning out the melodic whispers urging him forward. His phone buzzed with a notification, a reminder of another unforgiving meeting, another round of metrics he'd have to defend. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to focus. The rhythm of his heartbeat synchronized with the tacit invitation to take action, invite vulnerability into a world that sought to suffocate it. What would it mean to put himself out there, to risk ridicule for the sake of something that set his soul on fire? He was no longer a young boy hiding in his mother's living room, tapping out melodies while lost in carefree daydreams. He was a CEO, surrounded by suits that saw only a bottom line. Yet, instinctively, Jacob reached for the guitar, fingers hovering over the strings, trembling. Would they shun him further if he dared to be more than the amalgamation of his corporate persona? Days passed as he wrestled with the decision. The hotel bar felt particularly lonely on a Tuesday evening, the soft clinking of glasses lost on him as he replayed his options in his head. A chance encounter with an old friend from high school, Emily, who had pursued a career in music, sparked something within him. After a few drinks, she spoke passionately about the importance of following one's heart, of how she had carved out a niche for herself against the odds without fear of peer judgment. "Jacob," she said, fixing him with a determined gaze, "you have a voice. Use it. Even if you fall flat, at least you tried." Those words hummed in his ears. Empowerment wrestled with doubt, teasing him with the possibility of bravery interspersed with failure. As he lay in bed that night, a thought crystallized: he could leverage his connections, his wealth, to gather musicians, singers, and even those who had shunned him before. Instead of fearing mockery, what if he led by example, a CEO unafraid to strip back layers of success and take a creative leap? For once, he would not just chase corporate victories but embrace genuine expression. That he awoke the next day with a renewed fire to draft an email outlining his vision for the charity concert. He envisioned it being held in a major venue, one that filled the room with a feeling of anticipation as he invited those whom he had once turned his back on. Which artists could he reach out to? How could he present his ideas in a way that commanded respect? Just as he pressed send, uncertainty sprang back with a vengeance. Would his previous identity impede his new direction? Would his efforts be met with scorn or disbelief? The weight of expectations left by colleagues, even family, hung heavy as he pushed through the self-doubt, but it was that weight that ignited a deeper resolve within him, a desire to unshackle from the chains of acclaim and reconnect with what truly mattered: authenticity. What if he found not just a song in adversity, but purpose? As doubts danced through his mind, one question lingered: was it too late to reclaim a part of himself he had lost? The answer would compose itself in the strumming of his guitar, a melody syncing with his heartbeat. But first, he would have to choose whom to invite to this pivotal opening, bridging the gaps that had formed between ambition and authenticity. His fingers trembled over the strings one last time, knowing the notes of his journey had just begun to unfold. Could he face the chorus of voices ready to challenge him? The moment had come to confront those fears and reclaim the life he had almost forgotten. Jacob's mind raced as he paced the lobby of the upscale hotel, the air thick with the scent of polished marble and hushed conversations. His formal attire felt restrictive, like armor that shielded him from the vulnerability he dared to embrace. This wasn't just a meeting, it was the launching pad for a vision he'd nurtured since Emily's words had echoed in his thoughts. That he tapped his foot, glancing at the clock above the reception desk. In mere minutes, he was due to meet with a small group of local musicians and artists. He had reached out to a bold step into a realm that felt foreign yet exhilarating. Jacob couldn't help but wonder how they would perceive him, the corporate titan with a long-held fantasy of music, now stepping down from his ivory tower. Suddenly, the familiar yet distant strains of a guitar reached his ears, pulling him toward a small stage set up in a corner of the lobby. A young woman with fiery red hair and sparkling green eyes was strumming an acoustic guitar, her voice resonant and raw. Her song whispered truths about life, love, and unyielding hope. The sound stirred something deep within him, igniting a longing that he had stifled for far too long. This was the world he craved, to be part of the vibrancy, the authenticity, the communion of shared dreams. For the first time in years, he felt a connection to something greater than profit margins and quarterly goals. The melodic strains wrapped around him, urging him to shed his fears and join the orchestra of life he had yearned to be a part of. With a deep breath, he redirected his thoughts to the imminent meeting. Jacob reminded himself that today was not about protecting his reputation but about unearthing his creativity. Each musician scheduled to arrive was a stepping stone, each story they carried worth sharing. He had no ambition to steal the spotlight but rather to elevate others, an unwritten harmony waiting to be composed. The clock struck the hour, and as the musicians trickled in, Jacob greeted them with a combination of excitement and trepidation. They were a diverse group, each with a unique narrative and artistic journey. There was Carlos, a gifted violinist passionate about blending classical with modern pop, and Mia, a soulful singer-songwriter whose lyrics spoke of struggle and triumph. As they sat in a circle, Jacob felt the weight of his title begin to dissipate. "Thank you for being here," he started, aware that these words were more than mere formalities. "I've spent years building my career in a world that values profitability over passion. But I want to change that. Together, we can create something meaningful, a concert that brings our stories to life and reminds us why we fell in love with music in the first place." Their faces mirrored a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. The tension hung palpably in the air. Would they buy into his vision? Would they see him as merely another corporate figure trying to co-opt their craft? Jacob sensed the scrutiny but also the tantalizing possibility of acceptance. Each shared story brought him closer to understanding the depth of his own ambitions and fears. He realized then that this gathering was not solely about producing an event, it was an opportunity for him to reclaim parts of himself that had been silenced by the confines of boardrooms and financial forecasts. Carlos, gripping his violin tightly, leaned forward. "But why would you care about our stories? You've made it to the top." There was a challenge in his gaze, and Jacob caught himself at a crossroads of defense and revelation. "I've realized that success is hollow if it is devoid of authenticity," Jacob replied, his voice steady. "What I've achieved feels meaningless without the courage to pursue my passion. I want to show up for you, just as you are showing up for me." As they began to discuss ideas, concepts that melded their unique styles and voices, Jacob felt a surge of energy unfolding. This was momentum, a collaboration where personal stakes were high but possibilities even higher. Each suggestion brought fresh determination and reignited the ember of his dream, yet, lurking within that bubbling excitement was the familiar specter of self-doubt. What if the criticism he dreaded would come in full force from this dynamic group? Would they still believe in his vision if he failed to deliver? These questions simmered beneath the surface as the sun began to set outside, bathing the room in a warm glow. They were not just discussing an event, they were exploring paths to vulnerability and connection. As Jacob shifted into the flow of ideas and music, one truth crystallized within him: the journey had barely begun, and real challenges lay ahead. But there, at the edge of that palpable tension, he felt a spark, a new purpose igniting beneath the surface of his once stifled ambitions. Would he embrace what could be, even as the fears clung to him like shadows? Before long, a new thought haunted him: was he truly ready to share his own voice, despite everything? He glanced at the musicians, the different faces of belief and hope. In their eyes, he saw reflections of his own unspoken fears. The crossroads loomed before him. It was time for another revelation, one that could either shatter or solidify his resolve. The stage was set for more than a concert, it was a canvas of uncharted possibilities waiting for him to step forth. Could he rise to answer the call of a new beginning? The moment was not just about music, it was an imperative to confront the duality of his existence between the man he was and the artist he longed to be. As the discussion began to flow, Jacob's heart pounded not only with enthusiasm but with a creeping uncertainty. The musicians exchanged ideas, their passion palpable, while Jacob felt like an outsider attempting to break into a world forged by authenticity. Each time someone spoke, he was confronted with the reality that his entire career had revolved around polish and perfection, far removed from the rawness of artistic expression. Mia turned to him, her eyes probing. "You said you wanted to elevate others, but what about your own story? Have you ever shared it?" The question hung in the air, unsettling yet electrifying. He had always kept his personal narrative locked away, concealing his yearning for artistry beneath layers of ambition and success. "I suppose I've never really thought anyone would be interested in it," he admitted, a hesitant smile tracing his lips as he deflected with self-deprecation. "Then it's time," she declared, a mischievous glint in her eye. "Share with us why you're even here, Jacob. What drives you?" As the spotlight turned onto him, Jacob felt a wave of panic rising in his throat. How was he supposed to articulate years of ambition, the suffocating expectations, and that flickering hope for a more vibrant life? Yet every face in the circle bore a mixture of expectancy and encouragement, pushing him toward introspection. He realized he had a choice: remain hidden behind his corporate mask or step forward and confront the shadows of his aspirations. Gathering his thoughts, he spoke. I've spent years chasing numbers, meeting deadlines, and building an empire. But beneath it all has been a persistent yearning to create. Like many, I once had dreams of music, but my journey led me into a world where passion was dwarfed by profit. He felt the weight of his own revelation. For so long, I believed that success was defined by titles and accolades. Yet here, now, I've found a lifeline back to the dream I thought I'd lost. In sharing this fragment of himself, he noticed a shift within the group. Carlos's posture relaxed, and Mia leaned forward, visibly intrigued. There was a palpable release of tension. Jacob realized a shared vulnerability was connecting them, spiraling into a deeper exchange of dreams and fears. They began to divulge their struggles, echoing Jacob's fears while illuminating their paths through personal sacrifices. He found commonality and strength in their stories, understanding that every musician at the table had battled their own demons for the sake of their art. In this newfound authenticity, a sense of camaraderie blossomed, urging Jacob to confront the duality he had long suppressed. In the warmth of their collective experiences, he felt a quiet ember of potential flicker to life within him, a longing not just to tell his story, but to share the music that had once defined him. As ideas continued to bounce around, Jacob found himself staring at the sheet of lyrics that had been trapped in his drawer for years. Words that held memories, moments of inspiration that stretched like a tightrope between his past aspirations and the present. What if he offered to share a piece of his own creation with the group? The acknowledgement of the thought sent a jolt of uncertainty coursing through him. Could he allow himself to be that vulnerable here, surrounded by artists who lived and breathed creativity? What if his contribution fell flat, painting him not as a corporate savior but a fool? Yet, fear was beginning to carve a new path in his consciousness. It urged him to take risks, the risks necessary for real growth. He saw this as an open door, not just a pathway marked by his ambitions, but a bridge to connect with the artists whose stories had ignited something dormant within him. Mia's voice cut through his reverie. Don't hold back, Jacob. If you want to elevate us, you have to elevate yourself too. The conviction in her words settled deep within him. Maybe the time had come to confront more than just his fears about the project, it was a confrontation with the very essence of who he had become. With his heart racing, he spoke. All right, I'll show you something. It's just a glimpse, but I hope it'll resonate. As he began to gather his notes, doubt intermingled with a budding belief that perhaps he was finally ready to embrace the painterly strokes of his own identity in a symphony of collaboration. In this pivotal moment, Jacob stood at the brink of a revealing transformation, one that would not only redefine his role in this artistic endeavor but also reshape his understanding of himself. With the group now leaning in with anticipation, Jacob felt the tension build again. Was he truly ready to birth his voice amidst this sea of unfiltered creativity? Outside, the night deepened, stars appearing like shimmering notes in a celestial symphony, beckoning him toward a revelation. What if embracing his vulnerability was the key to unleashing untold potential within? The question lingered, fueling Jacob's resolve to take that crucial step forward. Jacob's hands trembled as he held the crinkled pages of his lyrics, their edges softened by age and longing. The words were familiar yet foreign, each syllable a reminder of a life he'd kept at bay. Shifting in his chair, he could feel the weight of the group's eyes on him, their curiosity a palpable force that pressed against his skin. He inhaled deeply, summoning the courage swirling inside him. As he unfolded the sheet, a rush of memories flooded his mind, late-night sessions filled with laughter, dreams shared over coffee, and the euphoric thrill of creating something out of nothing. It had been years since he'd allowed himself to dream in that realm, and now he felt the stirring of those old aspirations beckoning him back. Here goes nothing, he muttered, a mix of fragility and determination lacing his voice. He searched the room, locking eyes with Mia and Carlos, who nodded encouragingly. They were not just listeners, they were witnesses to his rebirth. As he began to read the lyrics, his voice initially quavered, but with each line, he found a steadiness that surprised him. The narrative wound through his life, a journey of ambition and regret, the desire for connection woven through the fabric of his professional facade. He poured the essence of his struggles into the delivery, allowing raw emotion to spill forth. And in the silence, I lost my way, chasing shadows under fluorescent lights. But would you believe, there was a time, when music breathed life into my dreams? The room grew hushed, the only sound being the clinking of ice in forgotten glasses. He could feel the resonance of his lyrics settling like dust in the air, catching the light of understanding in his companion's expressions. As he finished, silence enveloped the space, charged with a mixture of awe and contemplation. For a fleeting moment, Jacob fought the urge to retreat into self-doubt, but instead, he dared to confront any reactions that followed. Mia broke the silence first, her tone filled with sincerity. "Jacob, that was beautiful. You have a gift. Your story is powerful. You've channeled so much depth and experience into those words." Carlos nodded, his expression thoughtful. "It resonates with all of us. We're not just artists for the sake of creation, we mold our struggles into our art. Your vulnerability is a strength." Jacob's heart swelled at their acknowledgments, yet a shadow of doubt lingered. What if they were only speaking out of kindness, masked pity for a businessman lost in the artist's realm? The tension of acceptance willed him not to spiral back down the rabbit hole of insecurity that he took a moment, absorbing their words. "You really think so?" I can't shake the feeling that this is just a nostalgic glimpse, something that doesn't match the caliber of what you all do. My world has been one of detachment from this rawness." Mia leaned forward, her gaze unwavering. "You need to rid yourself of that judgment. Art isn't about perfection, it's about expression. Look around, we're all here because we've forged our paths through trials and triumphs." The conviction in her words ignited something within him. He recalled the yearning he had, the unformed dreams that could still take shape. Challenging his preconceived notions about success and artistry, Jacob found himself standing at a new precipice of freedom buried under layers of self-imposed expectation that he could feel a pulse of hope stirring, mingling with the awareness that now he was not alone in this reawakening. Perhaps it was time to embrace the undefined intricacies of creativity, to let go of the polished veneer he had so rigidly upheld. As the night proceeded, conversations flowed effortlessly, their rhythm a dance of ideas and dreams. An itch for collaboration began to spread within him. What if they worked together? What if his corporate experience could mesh with their creative fire to bridge worlds? Yet, there was a tremor in the back of his mind, a nagging concern that he was stepping into territory he had little experience with. The fear of failing loomed like a specter, whispering doubt. But as Jacob shared a few ideas on merging business strategy with musical storytelling, eyes lit up with enthusiasm. He imagined pathways leading to a project that could amplify each of their voices, a revolutionary blend of art and strategy. By embracing this collaboration, could he rediscover joy? He could feel a shift happening in himself, an invigorating blend of excitement and anxiety, but the undertone was unmistakably bold. The time had come to forge a new identity, one where vulnerability and ambition could coexist in harmony. With renewed focus, Jacob drew a deep breath, signaling to the group, "I want us to start something together. What if we weave our journeys into a project that celebrates our narratives?" As they began to brainstorm, an unexpected whirlwind of ideas unfolded, a tapestry of sound, stories, and dreams. But underneath that exuberance lurked the weight of expectations and fears, both from within and outside his newly sculpted reality. What visions awaited them in the exploration of this nascent project? And could Jacob truly shed the remnants of his corporate identity, or would it threaten to overshadow the artistry he now longed to embrace? The excitement in the room was palpable as Jacob's words hung heavily in the air, floating amid a wave of inspiration. Ideas poured forth, and with each suggestion, his vision expanded. Collaborating with Mia and Carlos wasn't just a notion, it felt like a heartbeat igniting within him, pushing him to explore uncharted territories. Yet, as the conversations ebbed and flowed, a gnawing anxiety curled in his stomach that it wasn't just about the work. Jacob was teetering on the edge of a precipice, balancing the life he had built with the life he desired to create. He could almost hear the echoes of his past life, a solid, predictable career that came with benefits but dimmed the vibrancy of his spirit. Could he truly step away from that reliability? With a shaky breath, he reminded himself that these choices were not merely indulgent whims, they could forge a new narrative. "Let us talk about our individual stories," Mia suggested, her voice steady. "What motivated you? What stands in your way?" Jacob couldn't help but feel exposed under the gentle spotlight of their inquiry. This was the moment he had long avoided. Revealing the depths of his struggles felt like shedding skin, it was both terrifying and exhilarating. Drawing on courage he didn't know he possessed, he decided to take the plunge. "I've spent years crafting a persona and image of success as a businessman. But underneath, I feel like I'm just a shadow of what I could be," he confessed, meeting their gazes. "When I turned my back on music, I felt I had to become this version of myself who followed the rules, who played it safe. But I lost something essential in the process." Carlos nodded slowly, his expression a mixture of empathy and recognition. "You're not alone in feeling that push and pull. At times, I've doubted my worth as an artist when facing the cold realities of life. It's easy to get swallowed up by expectations. But those experiences, the messy ones, they give depth to our art." Jacob found himself thinking back to his corporate days. The sterile conference rooms, the relentless pursuit of metrics, and the hollow applause he received for deals that never truly fulfilled him. The futility of a life confined to data and spreadsheets felt jarring now, especially juxtaposed against the raw authenticity of creativity. "Maybe I need to redefine my expectations," Jacob murmured, half to himself. "Instead of viewing these stories as liabilities, what if I embrace them? What if vulnerability becomes a strength?" A spark ignited within him as he began to conceptualize not just music, but a platform that could connect individual experiences, layering them into a collective soundscape. The blend of his business acumen with their artistic vision began to take shape in his mind, not as a product, but as a living organism that could evolve. "Let us create a sound map," he proposed, fueled by newfound determination. "We share our stories' pain, love, triumph, and transform them into music that resonates. Each piece can represent a different chapter, weaving a narrative that brings people together." Mia smiled, her eyes shining with excitement. "That's incredible, Jacob. It's a way to show how our journeys are intertwined." But as the flood of ideas cascaded through him, Jacob felt a tremor of uncertainty beneath the surface. What if he still couldn't escape the corporate mindset? What if he was too far removed from creativity to manage a collaborative project successfully? He grappled with the question of worthiness, holding tight to the fear wrapping around him like a weighted blanket. They spent hours bouncing ideas like a volleyball, the atmosphere charged with enthusiasm, yet it was Jacob's growing apprehension that circled like a hawk. Could he truly navigate this world of creativity while shedding the armor of his previous identity? As the evening wore on, he set aside those fears momentarily, compelled by the momentum their energy generated. But a shadow lingered, reminding him that facing uncertainty was an act of vulnerability in itself. Standing at the cusp of a new chapter, Jacob realized that he wasn't just trying to reconcile his past. He was actively crafting a bridge toward integrating his old and new selves. The unknown lay before him like a blank canvas, precarious yet inviting. What were the next steps in unearthing a pathway forward? And could he truly muster the courage to confront the specters of his past while diving headfirst into this brave new horizon? The morning after the brainstorming session, Jacob sifted through the remnants of last night's exhilaration. There was an electric hum in his chest, yet shadows of doubt danced at the edges of his mind. He had suggested a project that could blend individual experiences into a music-driven narrative. But was he capable of bringing such a vision to life? This was a project that tangled emotions with artistry, a far cry from corporate strategies grounded in logic and conservatism. As he sat at the kitchen table, the sunlight cascading through the window, Jacob took a moment to breathe. He was determined not to let the weight of his anxiety stifle the flame ignited within him. Reaching for a notebook, he jotted down his thoughts, allowing them to spill onto the page. "What is my unique contribution?" he wrote, hoping the question would lead him closer to an answer that he could visualize each note crystallizing into a tangible form, yet creating a sound map demanded more than just passion. It required the skill to orchestrate the collective chaos of emotions. He needed to confront his own creative limitations and let go of the need for control that had governed his previous career. Confronting that very thought sent a chill down his spine. The corporate world had conditioned him to focus on outcomes, timelines, and metrics. How could he embrace chaos and uncertainty when his very identity was wrapped up in predictability? The judgment loomed overhead like an ominous cloud. Would he be taken seriously in this new realm? Thoughts spiraled, fueling the internal conflict, the artist versus the businessman. With an impulsive decision, Jacob propelled himself outside, needing to change his environment to gain perspective. A brisk walk through the nearby park offered a reprieve. Nature's chaos, children playing, dogs barking, the rustle of leaves provided comfort. Perhaps he didn't have to neatly package emotions, perhaps their rawness could breathe life into his ideas. As he walked, he began devising a plan. If he could commit to meeting with Mia and Carlos weekly, it might anchor him in this new journey. They could share not only ideas but also their fears and insecurities, creating a safe harbor for exploration. This commitment required a leap of faith, but deep down, he felt it could fortify his purpose. Returning home, he drafted an email to confirm their next rendezvous. Typing "Let us take this journey together" gave him a surge of relief. The words represented hope, a shared destiny, but still, that pesky doubt lingered. What if he became a burden? What if his insecurities leaked into the group, tarnishing their collective vision? Those thoughts gnawed at him even as the excitement remained. He thought back to his early days in music, the thrill of creation and performance eclipsing every other concern. There was something liberating about being in a space where success was measured not by profit, but by connection. As a businessman, he had mastered the art of persuasion and negotiation. Perhaps now was the time to pivot those skills, applying them to foster collaboration rather than competition. That evening, a wave of adrenaline coursed through him as he picked up his guitar, fingers lightly tracing the strings. The instrument felt foreign yet familiar, an echo of another life. He began strumming a simple melody, allowing his feelings to seep through his fingertips. In this act, he found solace, but as notes filled the air, the fear emerged again, doubts about being inadequate, unworthy of sharing this space with true artists. What if the others saw through the facade? What if they dismissed him, revealing his past life to be a mere shadow? With silence enveloping him, Jacob realized this was the crux of his journey, the need to confront these vulnerabilities head-on. He must acknowledge not just his fears, but the strength he held as well. Determined to face what came next, he envisioned their collective sound map emerging, every note resonating with his past and present. In doing so, he might just discover the melody of his own evolution. Transforming doubt into triumph. Yet as he composed the first few lines, a knock on the door shattered his focus. Who could it be? As he paused, heart racing, the uncertainty twisted again. Who was waiting for him beyond that threshold, and could they further propel him toward the unknown? Jacob took a deep breath, trying to steady his racing heart. The knock echoed again, urgent yet patient. What if it was Mia or Carlos? What if it was someone who could either validate his new venture or trigger another wave of self-doubt? He stood, wiping his sweaty palms on his jeans. The moment felt pivotal, an intersection of his past and future, and he couldn't ignore it. He opened the door to reveal a figure cloaked in casual indifference, a woman with sun-kissed hair and a knowing gaze. It was Sasha, a former classmate from music school, someone he hadn't spoken to in over a decade. "Hey, Jacob," she greeted with a bright smile that could light up any room. "I was just in the neighborhood and thought I'd stop by. Heard you picked up music again." The mention of music made him acutely aware of his guitar resting just behind him, a reminder of both his struggles and yearnings. Sasha had always had that effortless ability to draw him out of his shell, but now, standing face to face with her, the insecurity of the past clawed at him. "Yeah, trying to," he replied, his voice tremoring slightly. "Actually, I've been working on something new." Well, a music project." Her eyebrows arched with genuine interest. "Really? That sounds incredible. Can I see it? An avalanche of self-doubt ensued. What would he show her? A half-formed melody? Embarrassing snippets of lyrics? The vulnerability of revealing his raw work felt like leaving open wounds for scrutiny. But before he could deflect the invitation, her enthusiasm stirred a flicker of confidence within him. Sure, why not? Jacob walked back into the living room, mentally arranging the snippets of lyrics he'd written in a fit of inspiration. He sat with the guitar on his lap, teasing the first few chords. As he played, a familiar rhythm began to float, intertwining with memories both joyful and heart-wrenching. Sasha listened intently, her expression softening with each note. When he finished, silence hung heavily in the air, so palpable he could almost taste it. It's still a work in progress," he stammered, feeling exposed. "But it's beautiful," she interrupted, her eyes sparkling with sincerity. "There's something so deeply honest about it. What are you feeling when you write these melodies?" His throat tightened as he wrestled with the vulnerability of his emotions. "It's complicated. I've spent years in a world where success is defined by metrics, and now I'm trying to remember what it feels like to create for the sake of creation. But often, doubts creep in. I wonder if I'm worthy of sharing this." "Everyone has doubts," she said softly. "What matters far more is how you handle them. You've got to consciously choose to share your voice." Her words sparked a revelation within him. Sharing was an act of courage, one he hadn't allowed himself to embrace. This entire journey was a chance to redefine his narrative, not just from businessman to artist, but from fearful to fearless. "Thanks, Sasha," he said, voice steadying. "I needed that. I'm trying to embrace this unexpected chapter in my life." "Good," she said, leaning back. "And I hope you know, creating isn't just about the end product, it's about your growth, the experience in between. I'd love to help however I can. Are you still interested in collaborating?" The prospect stirred a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Collaborating would push him closer to his vulnerability, but it would also invite support and motivation. The mere idea of joining their creative forces could reinforce his commitment to letting go of control. As the conversation drifted toward shared stories, Jacob felt the hazy uncertainty begin to dissipate. The focus shifted from the burden of expectations to the liberation found in connection. Perhaps this was the fresh start he desperately needed, a bridge linking the remnants of his corporate past with a burgeoning artistic future. In that moment, determination pooled within him, a newfound strength igniting in his chest. He had a supportive ally now, someone who pushed him to explore more than surface level creativity. How much further could he go if he opened himself to collaboration? But as they plotted next steps, the unresolved chaos of his insecurities lingered. Could he truly let go of who he used to be? The answer remained suspended in the air like an unfinished symphony, echoing the sound of possibilities yet to be charted. The door to revelation was ajar, but would he willingly step through, or would fear pull him back? Jacob's mind raced as he mulled over Sasha's offer. Collaboration, a word that seemed both invigorating and paralyzing. He could feel the weight of his uncertainties pressing against him, yet the memory of the music he had just played lingered sweetly in the air, a nudge urging him forward. "Okay," he finally said, breaking through the silence that had wrapped around them. "Let's start working together." The enthusiasm on her face flickered to life, and Jacob felt an unexpected thrill at her reaction. They began discussing potential song themes, bouncing ideas back and forth like a game of catch. Every time he shared a thought, an inkling of his life experiences, Sasha met him with encouragement that ignited a sense of possibility he hadn't felt before. A pulse of creativity was beginning to stir within him, the ghost of artist long buried awakening. "Let's set a schedule," she suggested, pulling out her phone. "Maybe we can meet twice a week. We can start drafting ideas." "Sure," Jacob replied, scribbling down the times on a notepad. Each stroke of the pen felt like a commitment not just to Sasha, but himself. They finalized the details, but in the back of Jacob's mind loomed the shadow of his doubts, whispering reminders of his past shortcomings. Could he keep up? Would he falter when the pressure of collaboration transformed the process he'd drawn solace from into something more stressful? Despite his internal conflict, as the days rolled into weeks, he found himself buoyed by their meetings. Each session brought fresh insights into his own creative process. Sasha's methodology was different from his own. She wrote melodies on a keyboard rather than a guitar. The blend of their approaches challenged him to step outside his familiar territory. He quickly learned to embrace mistakes, seeing them not as failures but as stepping stones towards something better. One afternoon, lying on the couch, he felt compelled to reach deeper into his consciousness for lyrics. A thread of vulnerability tugged at him, igniting an urge to share the emotional toll from years spent in a job that had drained his spirit. The thoughts poured out like rain after a long drought, words that flowed through his fingertips into the notepad. When he read them back, he couldn't help but feel a sense of relief and a twinge of fear. "I have an idea," he declared during their next session, anticipation blending with anxiety. "What if we write a song about finding joy in the little moments, especially after a long time feeling lost?" Sasha's eyes lit up. "That's powerful. We can frame it as a journey how rediscovering those moments can spark change." As they fleshed out the concept, Jacob felt an exhilarating blend of liberation and terror wash over him. It was a bold move, a candid display of his personal evolution. But with every word they constructed, every chord they strummed together, he sensed a shift in the atmosphere. No longer was he simply drafting a song, he was forging a piece of himself back into existence. However, as they rehearsed their composition, an unexpected knot of panic formed in Jacob's stomach. What if it was too raw? What if Sasha didn't resonate with the message? Would this new collaboration turn back into old patterns of criticism and self-loathing? "I need to be honest with you," he finally admitted, voice shaky. "What if people don't like it? Or worse, what if it feels too vulnerable?" Sasha paused, letting his words sink in. "But what if it resonates deeply with someone else? That honesty is what connects us. Remember, this is about growth." Her unwavering support was both a balm and a challenge. As he grappled with these warnings of self-doubt, he could feel the tide of change washing over him once again. He had started this journey to find his voice, to rediscover joy in creating, but now the bigger quest was forming. Facing his fears head-on could lead not just to songs, but to a new identity. Jacob stared at the unfinished lyrics on the paper, the echo of their conversations swirling in his mind like melodies waiting to be penned. Could he truly embrace this journey and step beyond the fear that gripped him? The answer was just out of reach, hovering in the air like an unfinished note, promising a breakthrough yet to come. In that fleeting moment, he understood, the real challenge wasn't merely about sharing his truth, but confronting what lay buried beneath the surface. Would he rise to face the challenge, or would he retreat once again into the shadows of self-doubt? His journey had just begun. The weeks unfolded like a series of vibrant notes as Jacob and Sasha collaborated on their music project. Each session transported Jacob deeper into the world he had longed for, a harmonious realm that allowed creativity to flow freely. No longer a corporate figure bound by spreadsheets, he was becoming a musician who infused his work with authenticity and depth. With every melody they crafted, Jacob's confidence surged. They created songs that explored themes of renewal, vulnerability, and rediscovery. The lyrics became his catharsis. With each word, he peeled back the layers of self-doubt that had previously held him captive. Their song about finding joy ignited an unmistakable fire within him, affirming his pursuit of artistry as not just a hobby, but a profound rebirth. As the final notes of their song came together, Jacob recognized he was no longer the hesitant CEO second-guessing his artistic instincts. He was a man who had confronted his fears, demonstrating resilience and clarity in his creative pursuit. For the first time in years, he felt competent, his newfound identity firmly anchored in his passion for music rather than the hollow accolades of corporate warfare. They scheduled a small performance at a nearby venue, gathering an audience of friends and fellow musicians. As the day approached, nerves fluttered in Jacob's stomach, but they were intertwined with a sense of exhilaration that eclipsed his previous anxiety. At last, he wasn't just taking the stage to present a polished product, he was stepping into the limelight to share his authentic self, a blending of his aspirations with his lived experiences. When he walked onto that stage, guitar in hand, he felt the familiar hum of vulnerability pulse through him, but alongside it was an equally resolute confidence. He saw Sasha in the crowd and the encouraging faces of those he had invited, the colleagues he yearned for as part of his new narrative rather than a judgmental audience. As they began to play, Jacob's voice rang out, suffused with sincerity. His lyrics spanned his journey of loss and renewal, capturing the essence of why music had once held such significance in his life. Each note resonated with the audience, piercing through the ambiguity of prior expectations. They were listening, connecting, feeling. As he finished, the room erupted in applause, validation flooding over him like a wave. He felt a different kind of triumph than he'd known as a CEO, one layered with emotional richness. No longer was he haunted by fears of judgment, he was celebrated for the courage it took to share. Jacob had conquered his internal struggle not only by reclaiming his artistic voice but by showcasing the emotional truth buried within. Looking into the smiling faces before him, he saw not just acknowledgement of his talent, but recognition of his journey. In that moment of connection, Jacob realized he had liberated himself from the chains of expectation. His past didn't define him nor dictate his worth as an artist, it served merely as the backdrop to the symphony of his evolution. Through this transformative experience, Jacob not only established himself in the music scene but achieved personal fulfillment. He embraced the fact that authenticity, rather than perfection, was the cornerstone of creativity. He demonstrated resilience, turning challenges into opportunities, revealing both strength and tenderness. He had proven to himself that he was capable of artistic expression and, in doing so, had created a life interlaced with passion and purpose. As he stepped down from the stage, the applause still ringing in his ears, Jacob understood that this was just the beginning. He would continue to explore his voice and the intricate tapestry of his dreams. The shadows of self-doubt had shifted to a light illuminating the richness of possibility. Now was the time to embrace this new chapter fully. The joy he had discovered through music would guide him as he walked down this path of innovation, authenticity, and self-discovery. You need to subscribe now to witness more transformative journeys that inspire. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help spread these incredible stories. Comment your thoughts, reactions, and theories about Jacob's incredible journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to show your support.